welcome to the Happy Mindset. Today's episode is episode number 68, and today's episode title is called Failure and Tumbleweeds. So today I'm going to talk about failure and tumbleweeds as a creative person. So I want to talk about this because I think the idea of failure stops a lot of people from being creative in the first place. So I just want to talk about just the benefits of being creative in general without needing to make an income from it or anything to start off with. So when I wasn't using my creative energy more consciously, I can remember I used to really feel like a victim to life, and I'd always be looking at things outside my control. So I'd be looking at the news and I'd be looking at all different things, and I'd always feel a bit of resentment that kind of like an attitude of what are they doing for me, and they're corrupt and they're crooked and all that kind of stuff. And of course there's elements of truth to all that kind of stuff. But you have to ask yourself the question, what is this doing for me in my life? And how is it actually affecting me to have these emotions in my body? So I didn't know it at the time, but that kind of resentment, that anger that I was projecting outwards was actually something that was happening within my own body. It was actually affecting my body physiologically. And it was affecting my mind as well, because I wasn't able to focus properly. So it's very easy to get into the default of projecting blame. It's a very easy thing to do. It requires discipline to stop yourself from doing that, because you are in those moments emotionally triggered by something, so that's where your focus is. But it begins with awareness. So once you're aware of that today, now I've told you about this, it takes discipline then to stop yourself from doing that. Over time it gets a bit easier. It never, in my experience so far, it hasn't completely gone away. But it does get easier to focus as you see the benefits to actually focusing your energy in a constructive direction for yourself. So that you start understanding how valuable your focus and attention is when you start doing these small, subtle things. So as a creative person, there is a saying, or there's some sort of saying of the starving artist, that it is actually a thing, that it is quite difficult to have a lucrative career as a creative person. That's been my experience. Obviously it's not the same for everybody. There's elements of luck, there's elements of different things from artness and stuff. My experience has been, it's been a bit of a struggle trying to actually earn an income from being creative. So I don't have the highest tolerance to risk. So I've also got a career, so my career is actually very logical and pragmatic. As a computer programmer, it helps to balance me out actually in hindsight. I've got a logical career, and then I've got more of a creative side to the podcast and the writing. So it actually works out well. It suits my tolerance to risks at the moment, and it also gives me that balance of logic and creativity, because creativity, it can be very out there, it can be very abstract, there's no actual logic to it. That's kind of the nature of creativity. It's actually just expressing things. I do feel a logical side does help me to give myself a framework, give myself some sort of boundaries to play in, so that it doesn't verge off the cliff. But so as a creative person, doing the writing and the podcast and stuff, it hasn't always been easy to actually do that, especially when I didn't really know what I was doing. So I guess I would have thought that in order to do this, that you'd have to it'd have to be something you do full time, and if it doesn't work out, then you stop doing it. That for me hasn't turned out to be true as well. I was kind of thinking about it in terms of a business as well. So doing something creative, my business was called the Happy Mindset, very broad. I can actually remember going to a business coaching session I paid for and feeling like a fool, that the person I was speaking to didn't get what I was doing. At the time I was freelancing as well for a guy in America, and he was wondering why is he hiring you over there in Ireland? Is he cheap labor or whatever it is? And I felt really kind of I felt like a fool. And I spent years thinking about this and trying to make it work, and then you go and you pay for a session and you feel like you're you feel like an idiot, a simpleton. And I don't think that's just me. I think that's the nature sometimes of trying to do something that actually matters to you, something that's quite creative, something that's actually different to what's out there right now, because it's coming from you as the individual. And so that can be very hard to navigate. There's a lot of emotions of what am I doing wrong as well. That's another thing that comes up. It's if I'm not having the impact, if I'm not having an audience, if people aren't getting what I'm saying, it must be me. Like, what's the problem here? Like, it must be me. And then again, that will motivate you to give up and quit and stop doing it. So you need to start building a certain level of self-confidence, self-reliance, self-love, respect, self-respect. All those things will help you to move forward. I was actually watching a movie last night called The Pianist. I think I watched it before. It was a great movie, actually. I'm surprised that the guy actually made it out alive. It was an incredible kind of movie. And I can remember one part that stood out in my mind was when they were going to the trains and they were heading off to the concentration camp or the death camps. And he said to his sister, he was like, I wish I'd known you better. And so when I heard that kind of hit home to me, that's what creativity and being yourself is all about. It's like, ask yourself the question that at the end of your life, it's like, who knows, the time is promised to no one. So what would you regret? And for me, it's like not being myself, not knowing who I am, not knowing who are the people around me, who they really are. They're the types of things that you actually regret. So that kind of hit home to me that it's not necessarily about how things turn out financially or what scale of an impact you have. Again, that's very relative. Like, whenever I find myself like thinking I should be having more of an impact, I try and remind myself that it's this perspective, that it's relative. It's like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day what the numbers are. It's a relative thing. What matters is that you're actually doing something that matters to you, and you're having some sort of a positive impact on somebody. So that kind of hit home to me. It was like, that's what really matters. Did I do my best to be myself? Because it's a hard thing to do sometimes, to actually be vulnerable enough to do your thing and create things in the world that other people it's left open to other people to ridicule or laugh at or like. So it's like, what's the actual question there that will help you to do things in spite of how you feel in the moment? Because at the end of the day, in my life, that's the question that's going to count, that's going to carry the most weight at the end of my life. It's going to be, did I know myself? Did I know the people around me? It's not going to be about the actual specifics of things, even though they're important too. I'm trying my best as well to like sell as many books and to reach as many people with the podcast and to do as well as I can with my career and stuff, because success does matter in the day-to-day as well. So yeah, that's failure and tumbleweeds. I've experienced a lot of both. I've been also lucky too. I've also experienced success as well. Like, my career is going quite well at the moment, and I've learned a lot of different things. And I think on the grand scheme of things, that I've had more successes than failures. But failures as well, they're not easy to deal with, and my advice would be to actually accept them. It's not easy to accept failure, but the power comes from actually accepting the failure, not dancing around it, not reframing it in a way that you feel good about yourself in some way or whatever. It's actually accepting that failure and then actually seeing the real positive from that failure that you can learn from. So it's not an easy thing to do, but over time it gets better. Like, I guess a flip side, positive to doing that is that you start dropping stories around what failure means. So what held me back for a long time was this story I had around failure. Like, I always thought that failing and making mistakes was something to be avoided at all costs, and I could never let anybody know that I failed at something. It'd be such an embarrassment and shame. But the nature of creativity, and I think the actual soul of creativity, comes from how you deal with failure and what you learn from it and what you create from it. So without any failures, you're going to lack depth to what you're creating and producing. So that's something to keep in mind. That's a reframe for failure. But when you go through it, actually try and accept it and then learn from it. Don't lie to yourself and just be honest about it. That'll serve you better in the long term. It'll be like kind of peeling off a band-aid quickly. It'll really hurt, but in the long term, then like you'll do better for it. And in the tumbleweed, yeah, I mentioned already, it's relative. Like, I guess when I started off, I thought that like I needed to be reaching thousands of people, and I also thought it'd be a lot easier than what it actually is. Like, I thought that like if you put things out there, that like I thought the worst thing the worst it could be would be that you get a lot of negativity and you get positivity, but I didn't realize how hard it is to actually catch people's attention in the first place. But I guess it does make sense then, like when you're doing it for so long, you realize, well, what am I like in my life? Like just kind of bring it back to yourself, and it's like, I'm just kind of focused on me. I'm focused on like what I want to do in the world and stuff. I don't actually pay an awful lot of attention to other things that are going on. So then I realized, why wouldn't it be hard to catch people's attention? It has to be something that really kind of benefits their life. So something I've been playing with more recently is actually like, how can I give more? But not from a naive way. It's more like that's like the background question in my life. Like, I guess I've garnered enough experience at the moment to realize when people will manipulate you for that kind of attitude and stuff. Like, I'm looking at more from a general philosophical outlook in life that will help me to look at life through a certain lens, if that makes sense to you. It's more of like a relaxed kind of, this is how I'm looking at the world, this is what I'm open to. It's like my premise is that the universe operates in you give and receive evenly. So I don't put a lot of thought into it, but I'm more conscious of that. It's not like I'm going around in my head saying, how can I give to this person all the time? Because sometimes that doesn't work out, especially just come back to yourself and realize, why am I thinking this way? Is it because I want something from that person down the line or whatever? So I've just generally I'm playing with that at the moment. For creativity, it's like, how do I actually give back from what I'm receiving? And just having that in your conscious awareness, and that helps you to let go of expectation and to just give and receive. I think as a creative person, the receiving part can be very hard sometimes. I remember when I started off charging for my services, because I was doing a bit of coaching for a while too, and I was like trying to make that work. It didn't work out for me. Another failure. But I found it very hard to charge. I found it very hard to actually put a price on what I wanted to charge people, and that was like a receiving block I had, like that like, and but that's the mindset part. Like, it's so I struggle with that, and so like that's the receiving block, is giving, receiving. So like, over time it does get better as you do start to value what you're worth a bit more as well. So I guess what helps me is that I've got a career, so I don't depend on the creativity. If I depended on it, you can get desperate and it leads to an even worse situation. So anyway, those are the key things. The key things to keep in mind is that, like, when you want to start off doing something, you're going to feel like you're failing a lot. There's going to be a lot of tumbleweed coming your way as well. What I want you to think of, though, is the questions that I mentioned there about, like, at the end of your life, what are the things that actually matter? It's like, for me, it's about, like, was I actually who I am? Was I actually showing up in life? And did I know the people around me as well as I could as well? They're the most important things. And then when you start looking in that direction, you can start moving forward. As well, I'd question too, like when you come to those questions, question as well, like, why am I able to be myself more? Like, why am I able to, like, do my thing more? And if it's a situation where you have to be a certain way to be accepted by certain people, then I'd question, why are you hanging around with those people as well? So they're difficult questions, but if you want to be creative and you want to create your own unique impact in the world, they're the sort of questions that you need to start asking yourself. They're the sort of questions I've been asking myself over the years, and that's how I've gotten into this position at the moment. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today, and I hope this has been beneficial. I hope it's helped you to start following your own path a bit more and to be more creative. And again, bring it back to the benefit of creativity is that you get your focus, your energy, your imagination back, and rather than using it in ways that doesn't serve you and is actually impacting you negatively, physiologically and mentally. So thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.